you know, sometimes healthy recipes, when you say the word healthy, right away it's a turnoff. It's like, oh, really? Are we gonna have rice cakes or hard-boiled eggs or something, you know, grapefruit? This is kind of one of those things that doesn't seem real healthy. It's a quick, easy version of pepper steak. And I think when people think steak, they're like, how could steak be healthy? Well, a little bit of it and a lean cut of steak, there you go. It's a way to have your steak and eat it too. So this recipe is perfect for that. And once again, it's a quick after work fix. So sip of coffee and we're gonna get to work on my quick and easy pepper steak recipe. Anne has been living very healthy, haven't you, Anne? Yes, she's lost a ton of weight, and we're so proud of her. So Anne likes steak too. I think she'd like this recipe. So the first thing I did is I started with, you can do beef tenderloin if it fits your budget. You can do a sirloin steak. I happen to love a flank steak. One of the reasons I like that is you get a lot of bang for your buck. It's very, very lean. There's barely any waste. And everybody doesn't need their own steak. That's where I think people go wrong. So a little tip, we're gonna slice this steak into very, very thin strips. And when I was growing up, my mom used to do flank steak for us on the grill, or she'd broil it in the broiler all the time. In fact, that's when I thought steak, that's what I thought, you know, that was steak. We never got our own steak. We couldn't afford it growing up, and my mom was also health conscious. So she would, you know, broil a steak or throw it on the grill and then slice it into thin strips, and that's, you know, how I thought steak was growing up. And now I've kind of gone back to that. One of my favorite types or cuts of steak is the flank steak. I do a lot of them in the summer on the grill, but they're also really nice to do in stir fries. So basically I threw it in the freezer, and that's an easy way to cut it into thin strips. And then when you're dealing with flank steak, and this is for any kind of steak or even pork or even chicken. If you want to get it into really thin strips, a tip is throw it into the freezer for 15-20 minutes, and it just helps with slicing. So with flank steak, you need to kind of cut it across the grain. And you can see how lean this is. The other added bonus when you cut it into thin strips, it's going to cook very, very quickly. So that's a good one when it comes to trying to get dinner on the table in a real hurry. So I'm just slicing this up thin. And when you get to the wider part of the steak, you could kind of double cut those. We just need about a pound, pound and a half of steak. So I think that'll do. The rest of it we can use in another recipe down the road. Fajitas, steak tacos, whatever. So I'm gonna heat, I want my skillet, in this case we're gonna use, you want the biggest pan you have, or if you have a wok, that's even better. So if you have a really great big skillet, that's fantastic, or a wok, that's great. So I'm gonna heat some olive oil into a skillet. Don't need a whole ton of it, but I want it to be smoking hot. And the way you can test that is I'll just take one piece of steak and just kind of drop it into the oil, and if I get a nice sizzle, then we're just about there. But I even want it hotter than that. I really want this pan to talk to me and be super duper hot, because when you're stir frying, you know, if you want to get some nice color and flavor with that beef, you need a really hot pan. If you ever get an opportunity to watch at a Chinese restaurant how they do it, you'll see that they have these, their stoves are like, these burners are like crazy. It's like rocket ships underneath the pans. So they're really hot, and they've got big pans, and they're moving things around very, very quickly. So, all right, I think our pan is just about hot enough. So I'm gonna take this thin strips of flank steak, and notice I'm kind of spacing them out in the pan. I don't want them to overcrowd and kind of, then that way they'll just kind of be more gray. I want them to get some color, and color is flavor. So real hot pan, big pan, and then space out this steak. And if you're doing more steak, brown this up in batches. The last thing you want is that steak to be cooking low and slow and kind of hanging out and getting gray. You want some nice brown color on it. You can actually even pick up, and I'm going to hand this to you, pre-cut steak for stir fry at the grocery store, and in a pinch, when we're in a real hurry, it works great. Okay, now for the stir fry sauce itself. You don't have to buy the pre-made sauces. In fact, there's a lot of crazy ingredients in those. Check out the bottle. Some of those sauces, you have no idea what that stuff is. You can really easily make your own stir fry sauce, and it's as easy as soy sauce, so about a tablespoon of soy sauce, a couple tablespoons of cornstarch, and then a couple of cups of beef stock. This is going to be your your stir fry sauce, and that cornstarch is going to thicken the sauce a little bit. I want to get every little last bit. I see some of that cornstarch was stuck in there, and that's really important to this recipe. If we need any more beef stock, we'll just keep it off to the side. All right, let's check on that steak. Getting some nice color. We're going to flip it in just a minute. I want to season it with salt. It's pepper steak. So not only we're going to put some fresh peppers in here, but I like to use quite a bit of black pepper to give it some nice flavor. Okay, now I'm going to slice up my peppers. And I love to use a variety of different colored peppers. I think it just makes the dish look really pretty. And these aren't going to be spicy. They're sweet peppers, but I love to use yellow and red and green, and sometimes they've got orange. And you just want to slice these into thin strips. Super good for you. Okay, how are my steaks doing? I think it's ready to give it a quick flip. Got some nice color on there. Starting to smell really delicious. Great. Okay. My favorite is the red pepper. I put red pepper in so many different things, salads, and love to put it on veggie and dip trays. It's the first thing people go to because it looks so pretty. It's very, very good for you. And we'll do some green pepper too. All right. All right, I'm going to throw some onion in. This is about a half of an onion. Starting to smell really good. Throw my peppers in. So you see we've got the steak in there, but quite a few peppers. So lots of veg in there, which is a great way to fill up. And the one thing with stir fries is you don't want to overcook the veggies. I think that is key, and I think that's where at-home stir fries can go wrong, is that sometimes people tend to throw everything but the kitchen sink in stir fries. They open the fridge and they're like, oh, let's throw a little of this in, a little of that in. And yes, you can do that, but you don't want to use pre-cooked veggies in a stir fry. They've already been cooked. Once you put them in a stir fry, they're going to be mushy, mushy, mush, and that's no good. So I love stir fries because you can definitely use up some of the things in the produce drawer, the extra broccoli, the carrots, celery, mushrooms, some extra pepper, but you don't want to be using like things that have already been cooked. Okay, the last thing we're going to throw in here is some fresh garlic. And I'm just going to give my garlic a rough chop. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to give it some nice garlic flavor. And then we're going to hit it with that homemade stir-fry sauce, which was as easy as cornstarch, a little soy sauce, and beef stock, all things that you probably already have in your pantry right now. Now, when that fresh garlic hits the stir-fry, first of all, it smells delicious. You really got to keep it moving because you don't want that garlic to burn, and you only want it to cook for about 30 seconds before we add our stir-fry sauce. Garlic is something, fresh garlic, you have to be really careful with, because once it burns, it kind of tastes bitter and it can ruin the whole dish. So once you start smelling it, which I can smell it right now, we're done. Okay, in goes our stir-fry sauce, and you want to really crank the heat, and this does not take long at all. That cornstarch is going to help thicken this up, and it'll kind of cling to the beef and the veggies, so you get a sauce consistent with what you might find at your Chinese restaurant. You notice how most stir-fry sauces they're a little bit, not as thick as a gravy, but they've got a little bit of thickness to them. Now we're keeping it healthy on today's show, so I love to serve this with some rice, and my rice of choice for this is just some quick steamed brown rice. Most kids and adults can't really even tell the difference, but it's a great sub, and it's so much better for you. Okay, and now this just takes a minute. Our veggies are perfect. They've got lots of great color. They're cooked, but they're not overcooked, and you can see how that sauce just thickened up, hits the pan, and thickens up in minutes. So just a few slices of steak. And then, of course, lots of peppers and some of that gravy. And you've got that taste of pepper steak that is really kind of a comfort food. It's kind of like a Chinese comfort food in a really healthy, delicious, and quick way. And we'll put the recipe on our website. Coming up, some more quick, easy, and healthy recipes. We're going to show you how to make homemade apple smoothies. They make a quick breakfast for on the run or a great after-school snack. And later, a nice big salmon salad and 2 healthy desserts, too. So stay with us. Lots more to come. We'll be back.